Assalamualaikum to Dr. Hamiza. So for our group, we're representing the topic Alternative Solutions to Forced Eviction and Slums Demolition. So for our group members, we have Nick Abdul Qayyum bin Nick Abdul Malik and me, Muhammad Alhamid bin Muhammad Sofan, Adin Zulana binti Zulkifli, Nurul Amira Alia binti Nur Azman, Muhammad Arif Imran bin Azmi, Muhammad Faizuddin bin Budin, Siti Aisyah Silim binti Abdullah, and the last, Adrian Viviani Anak Bunau. For the introductions, slums demolition and forced eviction are gross violation of human rights, specifically the right of adequate housing. Adopting an human displacement approach not only violates human rights international standards but also reduces the city's prosperity prospects in the medium and the long term by undermining them. Forced evictions also intensify inequality, social conflict, segregation, and invariably affect the poorest, most socially and economically vulnerable and marginalized people of society, especially women and children. Without tackling the underlying reasons for slum formations, they are bound to prevail. Thus, it is imperative to implement strategies that are in line with international human rights standards to face the challenge posed by the informal settlements and slums. So, in our topic, we are focusing on Philippines. So the Philippines Republic has more than 7,000 islands. However, only 11 are habitable, as the others are prone to the earthquakes and eruptions, typhoons, and giant storms. During the pre-colonial era, its settlements were mostly riverines and coastal, since traditional livelihood was mainly derived from fishing and marine resources. With Spanish colonization, village formation shift to the more island centers. Urbanization emerged radially situated with Manila at the center of this development. Since independence, the urban population has increased, with internal rural to urban migrations. For this topic, this publication showcased examples where forced eviction have been avoided in cases such as we are focusing on the 4 countries. The first one is Vila Autodromo in Brazil, where a community planned multi-scale strategy enabled neighborhood to successfully push their cause into the public domain. Secondly, Haiti, where the government's policy has gradually formalized informal settlement as a durable solution in internal displacement. The third one is Kenya, where improved access to justice has led to the local communities threatened with eviction seeking judicial protection against forced eviction and succeeding. So the fourth one is the Philippines, where the alternative forced eviction includes slums upgrading and nearby relocations, with poor communities gradually gaining access to basic services such as health, water, and sanitation. So ultimately, through these 4 cases, this publication prescribes short-term, medium-term, and long-term strategies and interventions that have prevent forced evictions and mitigate the risk of evictions that have taken place. For short-term strategies, the first point is participatory emergency responses to stop eviction. So for the data collection, they use in enumeration exercise working towards in situ slum upgrading to transform them into regular neighborhoods of the urban fabric. So for the second terms is medium-term strategies. So the first point is citywide participatory slum upgrading and normalization of informal settlements. So the second point is land sharing of and buyback corporate responsibility schemes. And the last one is a long-term strategies, which is 5 points. So the first is socio-economic programs offering affordable housing options in the poorest and marginalized strata of the society. So second is reforms to align national legal system with human rights international standards. So the third one is adopting the more holistic responses to planning, involving slums addressed in citywide plans. So the fourth one, formulating strategic financing approaches for urban renewal, including the slums. And the last point is improving the availability of services, land, and improving approaches to security of tenure and vulnerable groups.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Abdul Qayyum bin Abdul Malik, and today I'm going to talk about the housing policies and national law. Forced evictions are serious abuse of human rights, which is forcible eviction violates the complete range of civil, cultural, economic, political, and social rights recognized in international instruments, including the fundamental right to life, liberation from inhuman, humiliating, and brutal treatment, the right to personal security, the right to education, the right to works, the right to an effective remedy, which is stated in International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. Okay, for the next one is, For the next one is, these violations can be linked directly or indirectly to the following, which is the first one is the manners in which evictions are decided, for example, without consultation or participation. The second one is the manners in which eviction are planned, for example, without prior notification, without feasible relocation. For the third one is the manners in which evictions are carried out, for example, at night or inclement weather. The last one is harassment, threats, violence, or coercion. For example, coercion individuals, forcing individuals into signing agreement, employing bulldozers when people are still rescuing their possessions. Philippine Urban Development and Housing Act 1992. President Joseph Estrada of the Philippines recently signed Executive Order number 159 designating mass housing as a focal point of his administration and establishment the Presidential Commission on Mass Housing. The Urban Development and Housing Act was enacted in order to accomplish the following goals, which is to uplift the condition of the underprivileged and homeless citizens in urban areas and in resettlement areas by making available to them decent housing at affordable cost, basic service, and employment opportunities. So for the next one is Urban Development and Housing Act, RA 7279. In this act, constitutional basis, Art 13, Social Justice and Human Rights, in the Section 9 stated that the state shall, by law and for the common good, undertake in cooperation with the private sector, continuing program of urban land reform and housing which will make available at affordable cost decent housing and basic service to underprivileged and homeless citizens in urban centers. In urban centers and resettlement areas. So in the section 10, urban or rural poor dwellers shall not be evicted, nor their dwellings demolished, except in accordance with law and in a just and human manners. So the legal formulation of housing right. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights adopted in 1948, including the right to housing in the system of internationally recognized, globally applicable, and accepted human right law. Every child, woman, and man has the right to adequate shelter everywhere, as stated in numerous human rights agreements, particularly in the Art 25, everyone has the right to a standard of living adequate for the health and well-being of himself and his family, including food, clothing, housing, and medical care, and also necessary social service. In the Art 11, the state parties to the Prison Covenant recognize the right of everyone to adequate standard of living for himself and his family. So while some of the Philippines housing and international law and national laws are oppressive to the poor, the justification is lack of security of abode, which is house and land tenure, makes the people vulnerable to ejectment and anti-squatting laws. In particularly, PD 772, which criminalize squatting and prosecute people who are more the victim of government inadequacy than criminals. So in the guidelines number 6, in the guidelines for the implementation of the right to adequate housing 2020 specifies that forced eviction as defined by international human rights law must be outlawed in all circumstances, regardless of the affected individuals, ownership or tenant status, victims, forcible eviction must get fair compensation, reparation, and when appropriate, access to housing or productive land. So the eviction and demolitions, there are some rules and procedure to make it run, which is the first one is notice upon the affected person or entities at least 30 days prior to the date of eviction and demolition. The second one is adequate consultation on the matters of resettlement with the duly designated representative of the family to be resettled and the affected community in the areas where they are to be relocated. Okay, for the third one is proper identification of the persons taking part in the demolition, execution, or demolition only during regular office hour from Monday to Friday and during good weather unless affected families consent otherwise. The fourth one is presence of local government officials or their representative during eviction or demolition, adequate relocation whether temporary or permanent, and the last one is no use of heavy equipment for demolition except for structure that are permanent and concrete materials. So that's all from me for this part. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Nurul Amira Alia binti Nur Azman, and I am going to talk about a little background study of 3 countries that me and my teammates are currently studying, which are the Philippines, India, and Kenya. The first country that we are studying is the Philippines. The Philippines are made up of 7,107 tropical islands with 4,600 islands, and there are only 1,000 islands that are inhabited, which have been documented. The capital of Philippines is Metro Manila, with a total landmass of 300,000 square kilometers. Metro Manila has high density exceeding of 10 million people, and there are 16 regions in which 40% of the population live in extreme poverty. However, the government of Philippines have been working on to enhance the livelihood both in rural and urban areas of the Philippines. The second country that we are studying is India. India is a country in South Asia that is known as the world's second with high density, and it also stated that India is at the 7th place of the largest state in terms of land area and democracy. The capital city of India is New Delhi, which established in the 20th century to serve India's institutional and its government, which represents democracy. However, there are individuals who are abandoned behind due to the cities that are rapidly developed. The notion of any facilities in rural areas in India causes of urban poverty. The last country that we are studying is Kenya, which located at the East African country and known as the world's 48th largest country, that covered 580,367 square kilometers. Kenya is at 29th place of populous country, which meant to be the most populated country with a population of 48 million people. Now, Nairobi is the capital city of Kenya, and the most dense area in Kenya is at the highlands, where activities such as tea plantation are the main source of economy activities in Kenya. However, there are still people lives in rural areas or slums due to the widened gap between the wealth and the poorest in Kenya. Until now, there are over 30% of children in Kenya that are forced to work, and the majority of children's labor is centered in the nation's remote regions.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I am Adlin Zuliana binti Zulkifli, and I will be presenting about the issues and challenges for forced eviction. Meanwhile, Siti Aisyah Selin will be presenting the slum demolition issues. So for the forced eviction, we can derive from its definition, which is the permanent or temporary removal against their will of individuals, families, and/or communities from the homes and/or land which they occupy without the provision of and access to appropriate form of legal and other protection. This definition is derived by the OHCHR forced evictions in the year 2019. From the definition, it is highlighted that it is either a permanent or temporary removal against an individual or a group of people. It is because either they live on the land illegally or it does not have access or appropriate form and other protection. So for the forced eviction, there are many types of eviction, but in the case of housing issues, the first one would be change related to housing and land in countries in transition to a market economy. The second one is privatization and speculation in housing and land. The third one, slum clearance and criminalization of poverty. The fourth one, non-deliverance or non-recognition of titles to a land and housing, including unsettled land. And last but not least, housing tenure linked to employment permits such as domestic or seasonal workers. Next, these are the reasons for forced eviction to occur in the countries that have been chosen, which is India, Philippines, and Kenya. So for Indians, the slum clearance anti-encroachment city beautification drive. The second one is infrastructure and ostensible development projects such as road widening, highways making, and others. The third one is environmental projects, forest protection, and wildlife conservation. And last but not least, disaster management effort to save the people's life. The second one is from the Philippines. We can see the reasons are because of poor environment, unsafe slum areas such as danger zone. As we know, Philippines do have natural disaster occurrence. The third one would be disaster management effort, lack of adequate housing in the country, slum clearance at public lands by the governments of Philippines, and lastly, informal settlements. And the last country that have been chosen, which is Kenya, they have conflicts in the land rights, non-payment of excessive land and house rents, and urban redevelopment. From the reasons of the forced eviction, we can see it is mostly because of illegal staying at the land or house they are living. Slums in India and Philippines and Kenya are all over the places because of the poor country status.
Hi, my name is Siti Aisyah Silin binti Abdullah, and our next topic is about slum demolition. The definition of slum demolition is totally depends on how the existing housing circumstance is interpreted. Slum usually area of a city that are unsafe for human habitation, either because of the structure are unsafe, badly maintained, and overcrowded. As on our case study in Philippines, Kenya, and India, each process of slum demolition leads to 1,000 of people become homeless and jobless. There are several characteristics of slum demolition, such as overcrowding, poor structure quality of housing, and unsafe slum areas. For example, based on our case study in Indian cities, especially the largest one, comfort and extreme shortage of suitable housing, resulting in overcrowding. The quality of life in slum areas would deteriorate due to the overcrowding, and the cycle would trap more and more people.
Hello, my name is Adrian Vivianiana Munam. This slide is about the relationship issue Kenya, India, and Philippines. While eviction from an urban slum is particularly severe in the poor areas, the impact of forced eviction and demolition is retrospective that taught a set of questions that asked to self-identify and had not experienced demolition. The first relationship issue is forced eviction of the urban and rural poor and demolition of their homes occurred across the country, such as megacity, smaller city, towns, and villages. The second relationship issue is forced eviction also constitute violation of a range of other internationally recognized human rights. The third relationship issue is the document case of forced eviction demonstrate that state authorities have not followed due process under national and international human rights standards. The eviction do not stop until the families are evicted. In some cases, they were forced to leave their homes. The last relationship issue is about cases where the health and life of people living in dangerous areas are at serious risk. For example, areas treated by landslide or earthquakes.
Okay, Assalamualaikum. My name is Muhammad Arif Imran. Okay, today I want to talk about solution for forced eviction. Okay, forced eviction have been increased basically in volume, level of violence and magnitude in recent years, making them one of the most serious housing concerns. In urban planning and inclusive social policy, it has progressively become a large-scale mainstream practice. Affordable eviction are used by several countries such as Brazil and Kenya. This practice is inhuman and should be replaced with a more human method. Okay, they have another solution for the forced eviction. First is security tenure. Security tenure is one approach for improving the poor housing and living condition, and then work them to upgrade their informal settlement. Despite economic limit, this agreement between authority and community may be made to ensure better housing. Next is land sharing. Land sharing is a method of settling land problem between community and require land for housing and private landowner. One piece of landowner is given sole or to the community for the purpose for building their home, while the rest of the land is returned to the landowner. The ability to translate need and competing expectation into the meaningful win-win agreement. Okay, next I give to Faizuddin.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh to Dr. Hamizah. My name is Muhammad Faizuddin Mebudin. The title of the article we got was Alternative Solution to the Forced Eviction and Slum Demolition, which is selected chapter 5, page 49. Right. So today I will be presented to you about the solution for slum demolition. So what is slum demolition? Slum demolition refers to doing demolition or slum found in the urban area. Slum demolition, eviction or resettlement, urban reform tactic used to convert low-income settlement with the negative reputation to alternative type of development or housing. This activity is aimed at ensuring that a large city is not tainted with bad and disorganized city condition or image. Most of the houses in this area do not follow development standards, so the existence of the squatters' house tarnish the image of a city. There were 3 steps that the government can do the slum demolition, which is number 1 is slum clearance. The government is implementing a policy of free slum regions by demolishing the homes or of the poor, which are not only violate human rights but also run counter to the government intention to establish a Scottish free zone. The point number one means the slum cleanup serves as one of the way to the government reduce the problem of slum area escalation. This is because many low-income residents build their house in urban areas without following the set standard. A developed city is a city that free to slum area. So one of the steps taken by the government is demolish slum area to ensure the development of the city. Right. So point number two is infrastructure and extensible development projects. The next stage in decreasing the problem of slum region is to expand infrastructure initiative to assist the lessening the challenge seen in slum community, which is like the infrastructure like rebuild the systematic road, improve clean water supply facility, build a bridge that can help relationship happen, and build and improve good electricity supply and other than that. The point number two means that the solution is to change the image of the city while at the same time helping to increase the mobility of the population. This facility help in giving pleasure to the people that will be more comfortable to live in a good condition. The increase in facility in this area will also cause many poor people to be more comfortable to live in this area. Right, for the last point, which is point number three, slum upgradation, which is slum problem because they lack infrastructure facility. Many government attempt to address this by expanding infrastructure and facility unit level upgrade. Slum upgradation is the technique for improving of infrastructure by providing an appropriate water supply and sewage. So the upgrading for number one is like maybe tightening and regulation to ensure the security of the tenure. So number two, installing and improving basic infrastructure. Number three, removal and mitigation of environmental hazard. Number four is for providing incentive for community manage and maintenance. Alright. So number five, constructing or rehabilitation community facility such as nursery, health post, community center. Number six, home improvement include material upgrading, new construction and expansion of existing structure. Number seven, which is crime control, and the last one is relocation compensation for the small number of residents disconnected by the improvement. So this for me. Thank you.
So lastly, for the conclusion, in conclusion, based on the case study of the Philippines, stop-down tactics are better tempered, but collaborative processes and forced eviction are replaced with more enlightened programs such as slums upgrading and neighboring relocation. Aside from that, the alternative tactics used, such as land sharing and land swapping, as well as the people's plan or site and service plans, enable the community to return the loans. Furthermore, the alternative options used, ranging from the land sharing and land swapping to the people's plan or site and services plans, enable the community to return the debts. Last but not least, kinship links are the most important component in migratory chains, as members of the same family tend to settle close to one another. As a result, these kinship belts already contribute indirectly for the resilience of informal settlers, communities in the Philippines to natural calamities and eviction threats. Thank you.